Good evening, everyone. We'll just make a start. So if we can have the next slide, please, Anne, and we'll start. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thanks very much for joining us this evening. My name's Joanne Duncan, and I'm a team manager in one of our ELC inspection teams. Now, if you're joining us this evening, we're really grateful to have you here, and we hope that you're all familiar with the Care Inspectorate and our role as a scrutiny body for inspecting standards of care in Scotland. A big part of our role is also to support improvement and help services and providers to make positive changes. And we're here this evening as part of a webinar series which started in June, and tonight we're going to share some information with you all about supporting safe practice. I'm joined this evening by other colleagues from the Care Inspectorate who I want to thank for their dedication and commitment to creating this content for us all this evening. So taking you through the presentation, we'll have Laura Hill and Aaron Brown from our ELC inspection teams. Now, Laura is currently seconded to our methodologies team, and Aaron is also on secondment to our team that are supporting the launch of the new quality improvement framework. We're also joined on the call this evening by two of my ELC team manager colleagues. We have Anne McIntosh, who's supporting us with the tech side of the event, so thanks very much for taking on that role that everybody always tries to avoid, Anne. And Lynn Alexander is supporting with answering the chat tonight. We are very grateful and feel very privileged as well to be joined on the call by Susan, who is the manager of a private ELC setting in Falkirk. And Susan's agreed to join us and share some of their practice and experience and the role that they play in supporting safe practice. Now, I know from previous webinars how much you've all enjoyed and benefited from our guest speakers from the previous two webinars. So I do want to express my gratitude to Susan for being part of tonight's presentation and sharing some of the practice examples with us all. Thank you as well to all of you for joining us. We know how busy you all are and how hard you're working week in, week out, day in. So thanks very much for joining us and helping us share the great practice that you're all doing as well, but also for the dedicated work that you're doing out there with children and families. So you'll see that we're using an interactive presentation software this evening called AHA Slides. Now, this allows you to interact with our presentation and supports engagement as we go through. There isn't any difference to the slides that you're seeing. It just enables better interaction if you choose to do so. So if you use the QR codes on the screen to scan, it takes you to an interactive version of the slides. And I will show you in a couple of moments an alternative way to access those and how we're going to use them. But for now, I'll just give you an overview of tonight's content. So next slide, please, Anne. Thank you. We do have a full event for you again this evening, and I will shortly be passing over to Laura and Aaron, who are going to provide an overview of some of the Care Inspectorate's practice notes, with particular spotlights on our choking and scalding guidance. We'll be reviewing how to manage and assess risk and some key considerations that contribute towards keeping children safe in your settings. There will be that opportunity to hear from sector experience, like I mentioned when we hear from Susan, and our format will reflect the other webinars in the series with an opportunity for a Q&A at the end of tonight's event. So first of all, if we get back to our AHA slides, in that interactive part of the presentation, I'll show you a little bit more about them. So if we can have the next slide, please, Anne. Thank you. So just to allow everyone to see how the AHA slides work, if you've not seen this platform before, can you use the QR code to scan and access the slides? So I can see a lot of people accessing them already, so that's great. If you want, you can also open up another web window and type the code that's on the screen. So if you join at ahaslides.com and then you can put the M4YEK, the code in, and that'll also allow you to follow along and contribute to the interactive part of the presentation. So we're really keen to see who's attending these sessions. So the question is just about asking which sector you work within. I think you can only select one option. So I know a lot of professionals out there are working across more than one sector. So if that's you, then please just select the one that you work within most often. So that's brilliant. Thanks very much. It's great to see that mix of professionals joining us this evening. So thanks again for accessing those slides, and hopefully you'll be able to access those as we go through this evening for that interactiveness of this evening's content. So for now, I'm going to pass over to Aaron, who's going to be delivering the first part of tonight's content with you all. So next slide, please, Anne, and over to you, please, Aaron. Thanks.
First off, just to say thank you so much for having me tonight, and it's really nice to have everyone on the call. So our first slide here, just want to go on, each child is an individual with their own needs, rights, and wishes. When assessing and managing risk, the individual needs of children are paramount in ensuring that they remain safe and protected from harm. Each child has a right to their individuality, to be heard, to be protected, and the best possible health. The UNCRC Incorporation Act has made it clear that Scotland is committed to ensuring each child's rights are realised, wherever they are. It can be difficult to see how children's rights link to supporting safe practice, and we hope that throughout the session tonight, those links will become more clear. The health and social care standards state throughout how important it is to keep children safe and protected in a variety of ways. That's through personal planning, providing a safe setting, and being cared for by staff who are alert and responsive to their needs. When considering any aspect of safe practice, children's rights, needs, and wishes must be considered and at the heart of the plans that you're putting in place. Can I have the next slide, please, Anne? Thank you so much. So in terms of health and safety legislation, there was a requirement for at least one appointed person to be available at all times who will take charge in an emergency. Now, this includes being responsible for calling an ambulance and looking after the first aid equipment. For example, restocking and making sure everything's in date. This person must always be available, and for some settings, this might mean that there's more than one person that needs to be appointed to this role. The person must have emergency first aid training so that they can respond. And whilst the legislation relates to the workplace, it's recommended that this is extended to cover children and visitors to your service. This is to ensure that people have the skills and knowledge to support children's unique needs when first aid is required. For example, a child can present very differently to an adult when they have a broken bone, or a burn on a child is much more severe than on adults, as the percentage of their body affected impacts on how their body can respond to the incident. So effective pediatric first aid training is essential in ensuring that children remain safe and protected in the event of an emergency. And we'll offer some suggestions on how to achieve this throughout the webinar tonight. Can I have the next slide, please, Anne? Sorry, I should say this evening, not tonight. So first and foremost, we'd like you to share some of the things that you do. So what things do you do to ensure children are kept safe in your service? And we'll give you a couple minutes to respond here. Risk assessments coming up. And just for those that maybe can't access the AHA slides, if you're not able to do that, please, you can type in the chat as well if you want to put your answer there. While the comments are coming in fast, so we have risk assessments, medication regulations, use of Samoa with children, head counts. On the next slide, we have passwords for collection, family engagement, taking the first aid kit whenever you go out. Is there anything coming in on the chat, Joanne or Anne, that you can see?
Yeah, similar responses. We've got risk assessments, first aid training for most staff. It's great that so many people are talking about Samoa, so it's great that you're still revisiting the practice notes. We spoke a lot about Samoa in our first webinar, so if you haven't had a chance to see that one yet, it'd be great to go back and watch that one. But very similar responses coming through in the chat, Aaron. This is great. So many responses coming through, isn't it?
So many responses and so quick. Yeah, first aid, inductions, registers coming in. Again, Samoa, yeah, and risk assessments, really common theme. UNCRC. So thank you all so much for all of your comments. So because you've engaged so well, there's 8 pages there. we'll take some time so Anne can go slide through all of the responses. So what that will mean is if you want to watch the recording again later, you'll be able to see all of the answers. So thank you for your patience while we just allow for a few more seconds to ensure we've captured all the comments in the recording.
Aaron, I'm just going to pick up on something else in the chat that's come through. Effective communication. Sure. Absolutely effective communication. And we spoke a lot about that in the last webinar as well. So thank you for sharing that comment with us as well.
Absolutely. Regular fire evacuation practice, monthly checks on first aid, health and safety coming in. Perfect, thank you. And we'll move on to the next slide. But thank you all so much for those ideas. It's really great to see so many services thinking proactively about keeping children safe. And as you've clearly shown from that, you can see the risks and the dangers in everyday life that affect us all. What we want to think about today is what we know as the regulator to help share our learning so that you can explore new perspectives and build confidence on keeping children safe. So through our notifications, we've been able to identify the most common accidents and incidents that children are experiencing in care services across Scotland. These incidents are ones where medical assistance has been needed, for example, a visit to the GP or hospital. Now, accidents are a natural part of playing, learning, and developing. And where we encourage a positive approach to risk and play, so children can explore their capabilities and learn new things. We're often notified about head bumps that need attention, or broken bones from accidents, and trapped fingers in the hinges of doors. Now, where these are managed well, there are staff who have had the appropriate training to support children's specific needs. Staff have witnessed the accident or incident, and this allows them to act quickly to respond and promote a positive outcome. Now, where staff have not witnessed the accident or incident, or where they cannot interpret the unique signs that children present with when they need medical attention, and when staff do not respond quickly enough or have not completed risk assessments in the setting, children's outcomes are more likely to be poor and negative. Throughout this webinar, we will discuss how services can be proactive about supporting safe practice and prepare staff well enough if there's an emergency that compromises children's health, safety, and well-being. Now, it's not an exhaustive list. However, we have used relevant guidance, evidence, and best practice to cover some of the main ways to keep children safe and protected from harm in your service. Can I have the next slide, please, Anne? Thank you. So the first aspect of supporting safe practice we would like to consider is the prevention and management of choking episodes. And Lynn is going to pop a link in the chat for ease of access to the guidance. And although these are rare, a choking incident can in fact be one of the most devastating incidents that children experience in their early years. Statistics show that around 40 under 5-year-olds are taken to hospital each day after a choking incident. And in most cases, food is the likely cause, followed then by small objects and toys. In almost all ELC settings, these risks are part of our everyday practice. And most children enjoy a meal when they're in your service or play with a variety of toys and resources. So with the majority of choking incidents happening when children are eating or playing, it's essential that we know how to reduce the risk of choking incidents happening and how to know if a child is choking and then what to do in an emergency. Can we have the next slide, please, Anne? So the question on the screen, I want to recognize that that can be a difficult question to even think about, but it's an important question that we recognize these signs. So it's what are the, for those that may not be able to read the question, it's what signs might tell you that a child is choking. So silence coming in, absolutely. Blue face, lips, open mouth, pointing to throat. Just want to take a minute also and recognize that some of these things are maybe harder to hear. So if anyone would like a break from the screen, please feel free to take a break as well. Going blue. coughing, making noise, making some noises. Yes. Coughing. Is there anything coming in on the chat, Anne or Joanne, that you can see?
Very similar responses are in
Okay.
silence, children's body language, blue lips. Somebody wrote panicked. And it's also very important to recognise how you would cope with that as a staff member as well, because that would cause a lot of upset when you're seeing children like that. So the panic can come from both sides, but what's very important is to make sure that the children are remaining calm, which is why it is so important to have these really difficult discussions.
So Anne's going to go through the next page. Flushing neck or chest, I'll be able to speak. Now, thank you so much for your responses. Can we have the next slide, please, Anne? Thank you so much for your contributions. And you know, you're right on so many of these, and it's really important, as you can see from the slide. And it's really important to know the signs and understand them as quickly as possible. Every one of the ones identified have one common thread. Someone needs to witness that is happening by seeing it, hearing it, and touching the child so that they can respond to reduce the negative impact. There are a few simple ways that you can prevent choking episodes happening during mealtimes. An easy way to remember this is through the 3 S's. And that's recommended by Child Accident Prevention. So that's sit, stay, shape. Insist children sit to eat and drink and not lie down, walk, or run. For babies, let's strap them into their high chair so they can't wiggle down or fall out. And always supervise babies and young children when they're eating. It can only take a second for them to choke. This includes when bottle feeding babies. Propping up a bottle does not meet babies' unique needs, as it puts them at risk of choking, but also it diminishes the emotional attachment that they experience from a trusted adult during this really critical part of their development. To avoid choking, cut small foods like tomatoes, grapes, and blackberries into quarters, and ensure sausages are cut into very small pieces. Always make sure you have removed the bones from cooked meat and fish. And babies should not be given solid foods before they are 4 months, so that's 17 weeks, as this will increase the risk of choking. Wait till around 6 months before introducing solid foods. Now, we're going to cover food safety a little more later in the webinar, but the Royal Society for Prevention of Accidents and the Child Accidents Prevention Trust and Setting the Table have some really great resources and advice on getting this right for children from the earliest stages, so they build positive relationships with food that will last a lifetime. The same applies to choking incidents in play. Prevention is ensured by consistently risk assessing your setting, looking for any objects that may pose a risk to children's safety, and remaining alert to these things, being brought in from home, as often happens, or being broken so that they may have a small piece missing. Again, where a staff witnesses a child choking, they are more likely to avoid the catastrophic potential impact that these risks present. This is why staff deployment and supervision of children's care, play, and learning is so important in keeping children safe. However, if a child does experience a choking episode, it's essential for staff to know what the signs for choking are so they can respond quickly. When a child is choking, you need to know whether their coughing is effective or ineffective, and you need to know that fast. On this slide, you can see the common signs of both types of cough and the differences between these. Being able to identify these signs quickly is how you will keep children safe and protected from harm in the event of a child choking in your care. Our guidance that is already in the chat goes into more detail and has been developed to support your learning so that children remain safe and protected. Can I have the next slide, please, Anne? Thank you so much. Now, another rare but potentially very damaging risk to children is where they are burned or scalded. It is important to know, it's important to know the difference between the two so that you can respond effectively to children's needs in an emergency. Now, both are classed as damage to the skin, usually caused by heat, but this can also be chemical. A burn is caused by dry heat, for example, an iron, hair straighteners, or a fire, and a scald is caused by something wet, for example, steam or hot water. Now, Lynn will put the link to the scalding guidance in the chat for you to access. Can I have the next slide, please? Anne? Thank you so much. So what we'd like you to consider is what are the things in your setting that might present a burn or scalding risk? The soup, kettle, hot radiator, bottle warmer, fire bowl. Absolutely. Soup, the hob, yes, absolutely. If you're cooking, hot food, the iron, hot drinks, absolutely. Yeah. The dishwasher, yes. Especially when you first open it. Hot drinks, the food, the radio, some really common things coming through. So hot drinks, food, soup, irons, iron for hammer beads, a fire bowl, those of you that are making fires. Excuse me. Is there anything coming in from the chat, Joanne or Anne?
Yeah, again, very similar comments, but somebody's mentioned a laminator, a mop bucket. Okay. So if you're cleaning, your hot water, somebody's actually mentioned the cleaning products themselves. The sun, outdoor play, absolutely. Have we forgotten about the sun already? It's freezing outside, but yes, definitely the sun. Staff carrying their hot drinks without lids. So very similar things coming through.
Cleaning products there as well just came through. You saw that one. It's really, yep. It's for those chemical burns. So thank you all for your input, and I'll give Anne a minute just to slide through all the slides and have the responses. Perfect.
Thanks so much for everybody's contributions. It's great, isn't it, to see so many people engage in so that we can start to expand our own thoughts about what it is that we might be looking for in services.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Thank you everyone so much for participating. You have so many responses. I mean, 6, 8 pages, that's so many.
There's somebody in the chat as well, Aaron, just saying freeze packs or heat backs that are put directly onto the skin. Rope burns is another one that somebody's talking about here.
And light bulbs in the table lamps in the home corner, light bulbs throughout. That's another one. Artificial grass, I don't know if you saw that on a really hot day. Perfect. So thank you all so much for all of your contributions on metal apparatus outside on a hot day, absolutely. So can we have thank you all so much for your contributions, and can we have the next slide, Anne, if that's okay? But really, thank you for these. It's so helpful for us to take the time to recognize these risks together and see things we may not have thought about before. So of course, these are all risks to all living things. However, what we need to keep at the forefront of our minds are the specific risks to babies, toddlers, young children, and school-age childcare. And some of the things to think about are a scald from a spilled hot drink will cover a large surface area of a child's skin in proportion to their body than it will with an adult. You know, one of the answers that we saw in the slide before from so many people. Babies and toddlers have thinner skins, so up to 15 times thinner than that of an adult. This means that the injury is more severe, and a small contact burn or scald can be a minor irritant for an adult, but it can be a very serious injury for a young child. Children's mouths are more sensitive and cannot tolerate the same temperatures as adults. So rightly so, the answers that we saw, soup, food. Children are wonderfully inquisitive. It's what makes them so amazing to be around. But they are also still developing their fine motor skills. They're learning to reach and grab, and they don't discriminate. It could be a favorite toy, a cup of tea, a panhandle, or hair straighteners. So all the things that we saw responses from you. So everyone has already thought of these hazards. Children's reflexes are still developing, and some have yet to learn to pull away and won't know that touching something hot will harm them. They are also still developing reliable memory. So what you've told them previously may not register. So understanding these unique needs is a critical part in being responsive and promoting positive outcomes. There are some simple ways that you can avoid scolding incidents in your setting. For example, children should always be well supervised during meals. This means ensuring staff breaks are managed to provide that supervision based on the needs, age, and stage of children's development. All hot food should be cooled before serving and tested for safety. Again, one of the things that we saw in the answers before. Children should not carry hot liquids, and staff should serve these directly to children. And staff should think about their risk assessments from the child's perspective, as I'm sure you already do, to identify safety measures that will work. Can I get into the kitchen without an adult? Can I serve myself safely? Can I get into the cleaning cupboard on my own? As mentioned earlier, some scalding incidents include hot liquid, but can also be caused by chemicals. That is why cleaning activities must be managed to prevent children from accessing harmful substances. If you are using hot liquids for cleaning, children should not be present, and the same applies for deep cleaning. In addition, all staff should be trained on how to use and store any chemicals used in cleaning, including whether it's safe to use when children are present. So once again, witnessing a scalding incident means the impact is likely to be less devastating, as you can take swift action to meet the child's needs. This process is accompanied by another acronym. This is the 3 C's. So that's cool, call, cover. This is specifically for scalds now, not for burns, which is where specific pediatric first aid training is invaluable in ensuring that you support safe practice in your settings. So the 3 C's are as follows. Cool, place the scald under cool, not cold, running water for at least 20 minutes. Gently remove any clothing or jewelry from the burned area unless it is stuck to the skin. Call for medical advice. So any burn in a child under 5 or any burn that is serious, seek advice from a health professional immediately. That's essential. Loosely cover the scald with cling film. Place lengthways to prevent infection and allow for swelling. So just to be really clear, this webinar is not a replacement for your first aid training. However, knowing these simple steps can avoid life-changing consequences for children in the event of an emergency. Several other organizations, such as the NHS and British Red Cross, also have accessible and easy-to-follow guidance. So you can use your training and development to build on your confidence and your ability to support safe practice. So, Anne, can we have the next slide, please? Thank you. So, in a recent provider update, we shared this expert from setting the table. It's important to keep this at the forefront of your minds to keep children safe as we enter soup season. With colder weather being more common, we want children to enjoy their hot food and drinks safely, as so many of you put up in the response before. And now it's really a good time to review our scalding guidance to support your practice. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you, Anne. So in supporting safe practice, your main responsibility is to take proactive measures to reduce risk and identify hazards that have the potential to harm or injure children. So as you can see on the slide, the SSC codes of practice require us to promote the well-being and independence of individuals and carers while protecting them as far as possible from harm. That includes following practices, procedures, and policies designed to keep people safe, reporting concerns, and work with organizations and people to assess risk and making improvements when needed. That is your key responsibility. So when accidents and incidents do happen, it is important to complete an accurate, timely, and detailed record of what happened. Who was involved? Where did it happen? What was the hazard? And when did it happen? How many staff were available? Are there any witnesses? And considering the views of witnesses, including the child themselves, can help to add different perspectives that will help you to learn and to improve. Now, this record must be shared with parents and carers so they are fully informed of what happened and how they can meet their child's needs at home. Following any accident or incident, support and guidance for the child and their family is essential. When children get hurt, people find it hard to operate in their window of tolerance. Parents and carers may have concerns about their child's safety, and other children might have witnessed their friend being very upset. Staff will also have their own emotional reaction, and the child may be unsure about coming back. This may be difficult for them. So it's important to support everyone involved with compassion, interpreting their actions and emotions and words by listening to people, being present, courageous, transparent, and direct. Accident and incident notifications should be made to us as soon as possible when the child is taken for further medical advice or treatment. And that includes visiting the GP or going to the hospital. Now, this should be within 24 hours. So you can put in an initial notification when the referral has happened. So even if you don't know the results of the treatment or what advice has been given, that's where we have update notifications that will come in to support you. Once you know more, you can update us in real time and let us know about any changes you are making to practice. For example, you might change your risk assessments to reflect this new information, or you might update a child's personal plan to meet their unique needs, or you may plan and complete a lessons learned review with staff. The more information we have, the more confidence that we will have that you are meeting children's needs, rights, and wishes. Now, Lynn's going to pop a link in the chat about our notifications and reporting requirements. So there may be times when an accident and incident is also reportable to RITR and possibly subject to the duty of candor. It is really important to consider this when making a notification. And local policies and procedures should really be developed to ensure everyone knows their responsibilities under these actions. So Churus Learn has 2 e-learning modules on duty of candor that may be helpful to you and your teams. So thank you. And can we have the next slide? So the recording of accidents and incidents is something that we would consider and review during inspections. This is on the slide is a list of our core assurances. They're reviewed on all inspections with the exception of a follow-up inspection. Core assurances are the key things that we look at to make sure children are safe, well cared for, and protected from harm. These checks help us understand whether the people, places, and systems around children are doing everything they should to keep them safe. If we consider that example of an accident, this could be under many aspects of the core assurances. For example, the environment, accident and incident records. Was there an investigation? Is there any learning from this investigation into the accident to improve our practice? This could then be considered in a development or improvement plan. This means that the impact from learning from accidents and incidents could be far-reaching in improving our approaches to keep children safe and harm. So I'm going to turn over now to Laura. So thank you all so much for being with us this evening.
Hello. It's lovely to see you all. I just wanted to say it's so great to see so many people interacting with the slides and really getting involved in this tonight, and fantastic turnout of 485 people I think I can see at the top of this, so welcome. So just carrying on from what Aaron was saying there, in almost all instances, if children are well supported and supervised, it's less likely that accidents and incidents will have that devastating effect on children's outcomes. So, of course, the main way to keep children safe is to remove as many potential hazards as possible. However, effective staff deployment that recognises and builds on the experience and the knowledge and the skills of your team is also essential. Everyone needs to know what their responsibilities are in keeping children safe at any given time and in any given space in your setting. Those daily discussions between teams help to keep that consistent and create a shared approach that's more likely to recognise the gaps where children might be at risk. So effective leadership throughout the day with someone responsible for overseeing the deployment and the routines for children gets those gaps identified quickly so plans can be adapted. What you've got to remember is what worked yesterday might not work today in meeting children's needs for a huge range of reasons. It's especially important to listen to families when they arrive with their children to get that important information that might affect a child's day and then in turn impact on the routines and the responsibilities of staff. That's how you can offer that really truly responsive experience for children that meets their needs, rights and wishes. We highlighted the importance of those strong connections and meaningful relationships towards positive outcomes in our second webinar in the series. I believe that's been shared in the chat already. So please do go back and watch that if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet. It's also really important to consider when you need key staff to be available during transitions. So lunchtimes, drop-off, pick-up routines. Lunchtimes for babies and young children and some children with additional support needs can be the highest risk time of the day. That means that those staff who are supporting those lunch routines have to have the right training, the right skills and the right experience to offer children the support that they need during that period to keep them safe. So some things you might want to ask yourself are you confident that when you're feeding babies and supporting lunchtime routines, you can respond quickly and confidently if a child is choking? Do you know as a childminder that you're well prepared enough so you can remain in the room with children throughout the whole lunchtime experience? And as a leader, can you see that staff breaks are planned to ensure every child is well supervised during mealtimes? Considering those aspects of your practice are essential, but effective communication and teamwork will almost always prevent accidents and incidents because those hazards are seen before they pose a risk to children. So think about how you place yourself in a room. Can you see across different areas to support the highest number of children? Is your back to the wall, or are you looking at the room where the children are playing? If you're at children's level, can you still see across the room or where other children are playing independently? Or have you asked one of your colleagues to supervise while you enjoy quality time with children in a small group? Regularly asking yourself these questions will provide that reflective and professional approach needed to consistently respond to children's needs so that they remain safe and protected from harm. Next slide, please, Anne. Thank you. So whilst we want to keep children safe, we are also committed to ensuring that there's a positive and balanced approach to risk in play. Children learn best and reach their potential when they're challenged to solve problems and try new things. What's important is that children experience a well-maintained physical environment. So that regular maintenance of buildings, resources and equipment help to provide the developmentally responsive play and learning we want them to have. So to achieve this, we're looking for an appropriate level of risk assessment that minimises those risks to keep children safe. And one way that you can do this is the Health and Safety Executive recommend these 5 steps to risk assessment that are up here. And that can help you to create that safe space. So following these steps and also considering and recording the benefits to children's progress provides that really robust understanding of why we do what we do. There's recognition that whilst children have to be kept safe, children's play provides an opportunity to take and learn from measured risk. And so that benefit risk assessment approach will help you fully understand children's needs while helping them to thrive. There's some simple things that you can consider. So for example, most toys tell you what ages they're appropriate for, and that's clearly indicated for you to follow. But if you're taking in donated toys, does it have the manufacturer's instructions with it? And if not, how do you know it's safe for your children? Have you considered the size and shape of loose parts with children's individual needs in mind? Do your resources have any loose parts like button batteries in headbands? You'll have seen lots of those over the past few days for Halloween, I'm sure. And also hair baubles with beads on them. If a hair bauble breaks and you get a wee bead, that becomes a bit of a risk. What you need to think about as well is, will the resources meet children's sensory needs that's often met through chewing and mouthing, but still be safe for them to use? Are cleaning materials stored out of reach of children in those child-safe cupboards? And are mops that you use for toilet spaces stored appropriately out of reach of children, or are they always really well supervised where that is? Another thing to think about is, do staff have their own space for preparing lunches and their break time cuppa? One of the most common scalds is due to a hot cup of tea or coffee being spilled above a child. So how are you managing that risk? And also, we know that there are lots of services, especially childminders, who have pets. So what measures have you got in place to ensure children are always supervised and encouraged to understand a pet's behaviour so that it keeps them safe as well? Next slide, please, Anne. Thank you. So back to that sort of positive, safe, happy and healthy mealtime that we want. We want children to be supported to make those healthy and appropriate choices, enjoy the food they're offered and have positive social interactions and learning experiences that are associated with eating and drinking together. So to achieve this, it's good practice to have practitioners sit with children when they're eating, to supervise, but to provide support and role model behaviours. Having that kind of positive mealtime is an essential part of a child's learning experience. Keeping children safe at mealtimes is critical because it's not nurturing and supportive without that. Getting the basics of safety right provides the foundation for children's progress and development. Again, some key considerations you need to take when you're thinking about food is about that food size to prevent the risk of choking. And if you haven't prepared the food, how are you checking it before you serve it to children? The temperatures and the textures should also be checked. And again, if you haven't prepared it, are you sorting through the serving trays to check that large lumps are broken down to suit children's ability to chew and digest food? And we know that although some foods are required to be cooked at a certain temperature, they must only be served to children when cooled and at an appropriate temperature. So who's responsible for checking the temperature of food before it's served? Does more than one person check it to know that it's safe? And how are you supporting and training staff to consider this if they're responsible for that at mealtimes? Of course, the food is only one element of that safe mealtime. There's lots of other considerations, including where are children sitting? Is the chair a safe base for children to be? Who is available to support them? And even what cutlery and crockery are they using? All of these aspects help children to keep themselves safe as they learn to feed themselves and develop those positive relationships with food. Including children in setting up mealtimes can help them to recognise what's safest for them from a really early age. And asking yourselves these questions can support, again, that reflective practice that responds to children's needs. Something as simple as making sure that children enjoy the food they're eating can keep them engaged and reduce that risk of children wandering around with the food in their mouths. And having a supportive adult showing children that they should chew slowly and purposefully helps them to build those skills for life. Okie doke, so enough from us. Now for the really good part. want to say welcome to Susan. She's so kindly given up her time this evening and in the last few weeks, actually, just to share some of the learning from her setting on how they support safe practice. So Susan comes with a wealth of practical knowledge and experience in achieving this with her team. And it's wonderful for us to be able to hear all about how Wellside Kindergarten are supporting that safe practice for all of their children. So Susan, welcome and thank you again for being with us this evening. I know it's a bit daunting, but I'm sure we were going to do our very best.
No, thank you for having me.
No, we're really pleased, so thank you. So let's start off. Can you just tell us a bit more about how you make sure the people that you work with have those skills and the knowledge that they need to keep children safe?
Yeah, I think in the first instance for us, we have really, really robust policies and procedures that all our staff are involved in. They're not only involved in creating it and updating it, it's also our children and families that we include in that as well. Our policies and procedures very much form part of our induction as well, and we do a full induction in pretty much the first month when somebody starts. We made the decision not to drag it out, but to do it all in the first month. It's quite onerous and quite a lot for people, but then we have the confidence to know that every single person on the floor with the children has the same knowledge, has the same training, and has got the same information. So there's not any gaps in that, and it's a confidence thing for us. Also, when new documents arrive in the nursery, whether it's national or local or whatever, we react really quickly to that, and we then look at the induction process. So we feel that our induction process is always really current. We remove things, we add things in as they're coming in, and that includes actually the care inspectorate's practice notes and the bite size. We include that in our induction because some of them have been out for quite a while, so you can kind of do them and then forget about them maybe with newer staff. So we have built them into our induction process. We also do have a Millie's Mark accreditation, which is a kite mark. So it's 12 hours of first aid for all members of staff as soon as they start in the nursery. That doesn't just look at first aid, it looks at risk assessment, your building, the location of first aid boxes. You have to prove really that you're looking at in a holistic way. It also includes safe sleep training, child protection, all the usual core stuff as well. But I think for us, it's always about the child's safety, but it's preparing the adults that are in the building to be able to respond to that quickly. Mm-hmm. We changed our recruitment process a few years ago to look at, we recruit for attitude and then train for skills. So right. We have a huge commitment to do that. We decided we were going to do that and we have to stand by that. So then we have to ensure that every individual gets time off the floor, they get the time to do their proper induction, and then really it's confidence that we know everybody has the same. We also reach out to lots of other organisations as part of our induction, and one that we use is the Scottish Cot Dead Society, who do safe sleep training. They give you information for parents. They have a fantastic helpline if you've got any queries from parents, and they also give you a charter, which is really nice if you do their training, that you can display for parents to prove that all your staff have been trained, and it's confidence for them as well.
That's great, Susan. It's so good to see and hear you using so many different, ways of doing that. And I know that you use the National Induction Resource as well in a really effective way. Just tell us a bit more about how you're using that.
We really like the National Induction Resource, actually. It's another document, it's another thing to look at, but we don't use it just with new staff, we use it with all our staff. Right. And so it doesn't matter how long you've been in early years, it's actually a great self-evaluation tool. So we decided to give a copy to each member of staff and ask them to link it to the Shinari indicators, the UNCRC rights and Samoa. And I think by doing that, it's really brought the document alive and it's actually very user friendly. We don't use it in order. We pick sections of it. So we use it as part of our appraisal system with staff. We use it for team meetings. We've created quizzes from it. So what we would deem to be sort of quick wins on various aspects. It's actually really good to help you identify individual staff's training needs as well from it. So we're still using it, we're still on a journey with it, but it's quite interesting that when you give it to individual people, they have different views on each section and how safety, you know, we had some people identifying a Samoa element in it and others not. And then we're saying, why is that? You know, so but that gives you something then to work on.
And something to talk about, you know, and to actually reflect on. So that's super. And it's good to hear that you're using it for that consistency across your team. So regardless of whether you've been in the job for, you know, however long or you're brand new, you've still got that to promote that consistency. And it's really nice to hear you using it in quite a creative way rather than just a tick box. So and one thing I was kind of wondering, because you've obviously done that sort of training needs and understanding that, but how do you know, you as a manager and provide, how do you know that children are being kept safe? And how do you know that staff get it?
Yeah. I mean, we look at the National Induction Resource, we don't write screeds and screeds from that. We write small bullet points, but really we use it as a management team, we use it to look at consistency. It's a great development tool, but for us it is about consistency. If 5 people are saying one thing and 10 are saying another thing, right away you've got something to work on. It's a very good document, as I said, for quick wins. You can just look at it one day, see something and identify it. We also use fishbone analysis with our staff, and we allow them to be a champion. So we have a safe sleep champion. So they use the National Induction Resource, they use their safe sleep analysis, they speak to parents, they speak to staff, they observe children, and then they can see whether we have consistency across the board. So our safe sleep champion, she's done that recently. She came back and she said, everybody's doing that really well. You know, they're all on the same page, they're all using the same format, and we know that children, when we put them down to sleep, they're safe. They're being monitored, we're recording them every 10 minutes, all the things that you're supposed to do. And our other member of staff was maybe looking at intimate care from a safety point of view and a nurture point of view. She said it was all safe, it was all very nurturing, but there was sort of glitches in the procedures for our nappy changing, when do you put the gloves on, when do you take them off, things like that. So it really identifies just small things, I think. Yeah. It fits very well with your self-evaluation. And you can just do something about it very quickly, and then everybody's on the same page.
That's brilliant, Susan. It's good to hear that you're using that best practice, but in your observations of staff practice to really think about, but is this right? Because it's so easy for us to just get into it and sit and think, oh no, I know that was right, but actually you've got staff who are really clearly saying, no, this is what's the expectation, and here's what we want to see. So that's really super. Thank you. Finally, very last thing, what do you think's been the most effective thing that you've done to keep children safe in your service? So is there anything that you've learned that you just wish you'd known on your first day of working with children?
We have done a wee exercise recently with the Safe Staffing Act and the quality framework, just looking at the deployment of staff, how staff complement one another. And I think we've got much better at doing that. But I think one of the things really, and my colleagues that are on this are going to get really, feel this is going to get really cringy now when I say this, but we try very hard not to just look at educational research and educational documents. There's loads of things out there around leadership and things, and we were looking recently at the chief executive of Southwest Airlines, for instance.
Wow.
And he has, they've been recognised as having one of the most productive workforces in America in their industry. But that comes from, they treat their staff members like customers as such.
Okay.
And it's really interesting because they then know the standard, they know what's expected. They're in there, they see what happens, and it's all about monitoring it. And I think that for us, it's about the children, but I think if the staff it starts with the staff, and that's their mantra. If you do it right with the staff, the rest just falls naturally into place. And his name's Herb Keller. My colleagues.
Well, there you go.
Don't mention it. I mention him all the time.
That's okay.
But I think there's lots of stuff out there that really complements early years, and that's, for us, it's about the adults, and the rest, safety falls into place naturally after that.
That's great. Look, thank you so much, honestly, Susan. It makes such a difference when we hear from people who are actually doing it in everyday practice, in real life with real children, and just so grateful for your time this evening. And I'm sure everyone has taken lots and lots from your input. I can tell you now, you're very lucky. You can now turn off your camera and your mic, and you are done. But thank you so much again. Really, really appreciate it. I think
there's people on the chat there just thanking Susan, Laura. So I just wanted to come on and thank her as well, because that was so brilliant to hear about all of that information that she shared, and the way that you're using the induction resource as part of your appraisals as well to support that, identifying the training and development needs is great. So there's lots of people saying thank you, Susan. So thank you very much for all of your contributions. That was brilliant to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. Just wondering if there's anything in the chat, because the question that we're going to ask you actually is, what have you taken from what Susan said? So if there's anything at all, pop it in the chat just now, just while we're getting organised, and think about, what from what Susan was saying would you take away, or has it confirmed to you that there's things that you're already doing that help you, make you feel good about yourself? I love that sometimes when you're on these calls. Feel free to just pop anything in the chat that you're thinking you'll take from what Susan's told us. Yeah, fab ideas about using the documents. All staff important as leaders, definitely. Yeah, lots of external sources that can deliver training. Great. So you can now join again through the AHA slides as well. You can still continue in the chat if you prefer, but yeah, there's so many available tools across childcare, but also out with. These are great. So good to hear that National Induction Resource being seen as a valuable tool, and using it for appraisal. Joanne, like you said, that's just been a really valuable thing to hear about. Yeah, great. Yep, speak to other childminders and you'll find a way that you're doing things through the same, and you can help each other. Absolutely. Talking to other people and how they do things is so important. Great to hear from other practice and those policy updates. Yeah, we get really good feedback actually on these webinars for people actually from the sector coming and speaking. So we really try and build that in where we can. You want to scroll down, and I'm not sure if there's any more. Everyone in the service being important. Yeah, absolutely. Staff are absolutely, people you have, and the people who are supporting children are such an important resource for us. Yeah. Great. Yeah, good. It's a good extension of the previous learning as well. That's super. Lovely. Look, thank you so much for that. Really appreciate you all putting into that, and especially for your patience while we sorted through some technical difficulties. But yeah, it's so good to hear that you're really thinking about what you would want to do next after today. Anne, would you mind just putting on to the next slide? Don't worry, we are almost there. So, what we were just saying there about staff skills and knowledge, they are, of course, the basis for people knowing what their roles and responsibilities are. So that National Induction Resource is there to provide an overview of the basics. And Susan has absolutely shown us how you can use it with all of your staff team. You might want to think about how you're using it to ensure everyone understands. So again, using it as a self-evaluation tool to identify those gaps in practice. It's also really important for everyone to understand the responsibilities as registered professionals, okay, with SSSC. So those codes of practice apply to all employees in health and social care, and there's really clear links in these to keeping children safe. And I know that childminders aren't registered with SSSC, but actually, as a reflective tool for you to think about what we really want, that clear mandate on what people expect from you and when you're getting supported in health and social care can be really valuable. So think about using the codes of conduct as well as a professional reflection. Of course, teachers will have the General Teaching Council, but these are things that can help all staff to really think about their practice. And, you know, using that with the quality improvement framework, which I'm sure Aaron will be delighted I have mentioned, can also really help you to reflect and evaluate your skills and knowledge. Where you want to refresh your learning or improve those skills and confidence, there are lots of training opportunities available for you to explore. So Royal Society for Prevention of Accidents, ROSPA, the Child Accident and Prevention Trust that Aaron mentioned earlier, the Health and Safety Executive, British Red Cross have got some really good videos on baby and child first aid. NHS UK Best Start in Life is also a really good one, and we mentioned earlier just about TURAS Learn and the duty of candour, but they have lots of other things, and anybody can join TURAS Learn to really think about how you can expand your learning with your staff team or for yourself. Next slide, please. So another really important thing to consider when you're keeping children safe are those strong connections and meaningful relationships. So in the last webinar, we spoke about the importance of a family-centred culture that recognises, learns from and builds upon the strengths that families bring. Parents, carers, family members have really valuable and unique insights into their children's actions, emotions and words and what that might mean to keep them safe. So remaining responsive to children and families' needs and listening to those insights can help you to support safe practice from a slightly different angle. Listening to what they know about their child, when they might feel unsafe, what they might be curious about at the moment, and how they might prefer to explore their environment can really help you to plan and assess risk in your setting. And things that happen at home can help you identify potential hazards in your own setting. So, for example, if I've started cruising around at home and started getting into cupboards to explore all the exciting things inside, you can start to consider that in the child's personal plan and look at your environment to find any of those pinch points that you want to keep an eye on. Another role you can play is offering advice and sharing your learning about keeping children safe. So things like internet safety, that food preparation for choking and scalding, and basic first aid can all be really valuable things to share with families. And that again can keep children safe beyond your setting. That's why those frequent conversations and the little nuggets of information that you get at drop off and pick up are such an important part of daily life in your setting. When families have got those really strong and trusting relationships with you, they'll not only ask for your advice, but they'll also tell you things that help children to thrive and flourish and to keep them safe. And that's where you can use your skills, your knowledge and your experience as childcare practitioners. Next slide, please, Anne. So finally, effective quality assurance and self-evaluation is also really important in keeping children safe, so you can make those positive changes that help children to thrive. When you're self-evaluating, you know, we expect you to go through this 3-step process, and that's how you're going to understand children's lived experiences. So making sure that you know that they're safe. How are we doing? How do we know? what are we going to do next? And Susan spoke about that really clearly, actually, using that National Induction Resource. So there's a range of ways that you can consider children's safety and answer that sort of how do we know question. Observing staff practice is really important. Auditing accident and incident records for themes and reviewing your policies and procedures in line with that best practice guidance are just some of the ways that you can keep that culture of continuous improvement going and, again, maintain that safety for children. So when you're looking at the evidence that you've gathered, some things you might want to ask yourself: does it tell us anything about how well we're meeting children's needs, rights and wishes? Do we need to make changes to practice? Do we maybe need to review our risk assessments to have that child perspective? Do staff need some more training? And how can we prevent things actually from happening in the first place? Equally, when things do go wrong, how can we prevent it happening again? And using the quality improvement framework and other best practice guidance can help you to reflect and learn on that experience to improve your practice. So those lessons learned when things go wrong are really important. And surreptitiously, in a wonderful way, our next webinar on supporting safe practice is taking a deeper dive into that learning approach. So good quality self-evaluation activities will help you be proactive about identifying those gaps. But what we're going to do a bit more on is how we can use lessons learned to support you in moving forward. So we hope very much that this presentation has helped you to reflect on how you support safe practice in your settings and has given you some food for thought and pointers for the future. So I'm now going to pass you back to Joanne, who will take you through the final parts of the session. And again, thank you very much for your patience while we worked through some of those glitches.
Thanks very much, Laura. We can just go to the next slide, please, Anne. Thank you. Well, wonderful. That was so much great information shared. And thanks very much to Laura, to Aaron, and to our guest Susan for sharing those key points and experiences. So we're now going to invite anyone to ask any questions or to make any comments. If you would like to use the hand function, and we can invite you in, and hopefully you'll be able to unmute yourself. Please also feel welcome to turning on your camera if you want to. There is no obligation, because I appreciate we are still recording, and the recording will allow others to benefit from your questions if they couldn't attend this evening. So if anybody would like to raise their hand, you can come into the meeting and ask any questions, or you can ask any questions on the chat. Is there any questions coming in the chat, Lynn?
Yeah, we've got a few. We've just got a few comments as well. Something Amber just wanted to highlight how important it is that we explain to children why something isn't safe. And absolutely agree with that. It's so important to teach children about boundaries and to be resilient and to take safe risks, isn't it? I'm just having a wee look to see if there's anything else. Someone has asked, what systems do people have in place for checking food temperatures? So that might be something that other people can respond to in the chat, because I'm sure there'll be lots of different things that people are using there.
I can see somebody's asking about thoughts on purchasing resources from different sites. Now, whenever you're purchasing resources, it is just about checking resources to make sure they are suitable for the ages and stages of children that would be using them. So we wouldn't have an opinion, I suppose, on where those resources are being bought from, as long as they are being checked and risk assessed along with any other resources.
Can I just come in there, Joanne? Just it's Laura.
Hi, Laura.
It's just to say, yeah, absolutely. One thing to also think about is whether it's been regulated using UK standards of health and safety. So it should be pretty clear on there in terms of the marks. I think we had an example of that on one of the slides, but you want to make sure that there's been those checks to make sure that it meets our legislation, because there's lots of stories about there about batteries and things like that. So be really careful that it meets UK regulations before you're purchasing anything, because there's lots of things out there and lots of really fun things, but we just want to make sure it's safe.
Yeah, brilliant. There's some people responding to the question about checking food temperatures, so thank you very much for responding to that, supporting one another. We know from previous webinars that's been really beneficial. Somebody's asking, can we get a copy of the slides, please? So we'll share a link to the webinar that will be shared on our social media sites. The actual slides themselves won't be shared, but the recording from the webinar will be shared. So if we can just go on to the next slide. Now, just a little poll, because we want to make sure that obviously these what we're doing is supporting the sector. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch a poll on Teams as well, which will pop up on your screen if you're not able to access the AHA slide. So if you can just answer one or the other. So if you've answered on AHA, you can just close over that window that's popped up on Teams, or you can respond on Teams. That would really support us to make sure that we are supporting everybody as much as we can with these sessions. That's great. Thank you, everybody, for accessing these. And if we just, a final couple of slides from me, please. If we just go on to the next slide, Anne. And like we did highlight at the start of today's presentation, we do know that there's a lot of great practice in the sector. And from our experience of hosting these webinars, many of you are really keen to support one another. And we've seen a lot of that this evening as well. So we thought it would be a really good opportunity to provide you that space to share any of your own final reflections. And this might help others to frame their thoughts or spark an idea that they haven't yet considered. So if you would like to, please share one thing that you're keen to further consider following tonight's delivery. And we can see some things coming in. The 3 C's that Aaron spoke about, more use of the induction resource. Absolutely, it's a fantastic resource and can be used so creatively, like Susan described, and used in so many different ways. Being more vigilant during meal times, people looking at their staff deployment, safe sleep training. Susan mentioned about the safe sleep training she took part in. Looking closer at staff deployment. Again, the induction resource is coming in very strongly. Viewing the whole room, that was a comment that Laura made. That was a really helpful comment as well. And it's really great to understand things slightly differently. And that's what a lot of these webinars do. It is about just helping you frame your thoughts and identifying areas of practice that can make that tweak or that difference. Sharing some of the documents with parents, champion roles, looking at the documents in more details, being vigilant in play with food-based play, ensuring that you can see children at all times, and that comes down to that staff deployment as well, doesn't it? And somebody commented in the chat earlier about that effective communication. So if you are moving away from an area that you would normally be in to supervise children, then speak to your colleagues if you can to make sure there's still effective supervision and deployment. Parental involvement, staff leadership opportunities, and we did speak a lot about the parental involvement in webinar 2, and we shared a link on the chat to that as well. So thank you so much for everybody for sharing those final reflections and thoughts with us. So we can just go on to the final slide, please, Anne, just for a final farewell from us. And to reiterate again that the recording of the session will be available online very soon. So please do share this with colleagues in the sector who haven't been able to join us this evening. Again, a thank you to my colleagues and a special thank you to our guest speaker, Susan, this evening. Most of all, thank you to all of you for your time and for your contributions. And we would like to wish you a very pleasant evening. Thank you very much again.